Yeah, I think the skills of a good assessor is having the ability to make difficult judgments. And I would say, given that these people inherently are politicians to some degree, they have to have the skill that most politicians don't relish, which is the ability to say no. And that may mean saying no to your friends.
Hmm.
And that's hard. That is a very hard thing. And I think you want someone who has judgment. You ideally someone with a legal background is very helpful.
Hmm.
Ideally someone with a commercial real estate background, and ideally someone who's, been in the office and understands the complexity of the office. I think most people have a very basic understanding of property taxes, and they just don't understand the complexity and what goes into making uh, the assessment, which is something every year. The assessment roll, it's like a little factory. A property goes from one place to another place in the organization, and you have to have a real understanding of how that comes together.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special double release episode for both Only in San Jose and Only in Santa Clara County, your favorite civic ed podcast dedicated to demystifying and democratizing the process of civic participation in local government. My name is Alina Yin, and I will be your host. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this special double release episode on the election of the county assessor. This is going on both only in San Jose and only in Santa Clara County because it affects all residents of Santa Clara County, including the city of San Jose. Now, we are returning to our conversation with retired Deputy Assessor David Ginsborg. And again, David is retired, so these are his views and do not reflect the County of Santa Clara. Now, before we get into the interview, I wanted to do a brief introduction into a county assessor for those of you who did not catch the previous episode. But if you haven't and are interested, I highly encourage you to go to the Only in Santa Clara County podcast and listen to episode 13.
Well, the assessor's office touches everybody, which is it's unlike any other position in the county. Uh, it is, by impacting uh, the homeowners. It's every homeowner, every property owner is impacted by the assessor's office. But you don't have to be a homeowner or a business owner to be impacted by the assessor's office. If you have children in school, if you have uh, drive on roads, those are all funded in part by property taxes. And the role of the assessor's office is really to try to identify every taxable real and business property. It's to identify the ownership and establish a value, property value, uh, for each of those properties. And there are um, 500 and let me see here, 532,000 accessible roll units, 532,912 accessible roll units in the county. And the it's really kind of a fun fact. The total assessed value is just under three-quarters of a trillion, $725 billion. So that's a lot of assessed value. And the property taxes are approximately 1% of that value. So you can quickly surmise that in our county, you are looking at billions of dollars being generated by property taxes.
So that was a quick recap. And if you want to listen to the whole episode on the Office of the County Assessor, please go to Only in Santa Clara County podcast and listen to episode 13. It's linked in our show notes, or you can just search Only in Santa Clara wherever you get your podcasts. Now, I'm going to go over the bio platform and anything we need to debunk in terms of claims of each of the candidates. We have 4 candidates for the county assessor, and I'm going to go over one by one in alphabetical order by first name. So the first candidate is Brian Doe, and on his website, it lists that he's from the private sector working in technology. Unfortunately, there isn't a ton of details on his previous work experience on his website. And the last bit that is mentioned is that in 2020, he was elected to the East Side Union's High School District Governing Board, as well as in 2024. And his platform is mainly focused on modernization of the county assessor's office and a focus on residents and making things more transparent for residents. And I did not come across any claims that needed to be debunked on his website. Next up is Nisa Filgore. And so Nisa was the assistant assessor and special assistant to the assessor, also was formerly the attorney for the assessor's office. She is a certified property tax appraiser, real estate broker license, but it's expired. Nisa has over 10 years of experience working for the county. Outside of that, she's also the president of the Cities Association of Santa Clara County, chair of Cal City's statewide Revenue and Taxation Code Policy Committee. She is the first Black African American Los Altos mayor and council member and executive board member of the Association of Bay Area Government, and also a board member of the El Camino Healthcare District Board and El Camino Hospital Board. Platform wise, her website says she is going to be focused on protecting local revenue for vital services like healthcare, schools, and public safety, produce a fair, accurate, and timely assessment roll annually, save homeowners and veterans and other taxpayer monies, and continue her work of modernizing the assessor's office in technology. I did not come across any claims that needed to be debunked on her website. Next up, we have Rishi Kumar. And Rishi is a Saratoga City Council member. And listed on the website is he's a Silicon Valley high-tech executive and Valley CFO, author and educator. He has served on the California Governor's University of School Regents Selection Committee. He's also served in California's K through 12 Public School Computer Science Implementation Panel. Rishi has been elected and served multiple terms as the executive board and delegate to the California Democratic Party. Platform wise, he is statedly against, he says he's the only candidate against Measure A. A large portion of his website is dedicated to that. And he mentions that the county assessor can reform property tax. So, first debunking, that's incorrect. That reforming of property tax can only be done via the ballot with voter approval. Rishi also claims he will exempt seniors from property taxes and stated that 16 states already do this, but that is also incorrect. There are 16 states that offer partial exemptions to senior citizens from property taxes, and nearly every state offers some kind of relief to seniors, but no state or county in the United States offers a complete property tax exemptions for all seniors. And if that were to happen, it would again need to be on the ballot for voter approval. Lastly, we have Yan Zhao. So, Yan Zhao is the current Saratoga City Council member and 2-term mayor. Prior to her election to City Council, she served for 8 years on the Saratoga Planning Commission and 9 years on the Santa Clara County Commission on the Status of Women. Yan holds a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and computer science from UC Berkeley and a master's degree in electrical engineering from Santa Clara University. Also on her website lists that she is the only candidate that has a state license, that is a state licensed appraiser. Platform wise, Yanzhao wants to put residents first by treating residents as customers of government, ensuring respect and responsive services, focused on modernizing the office, making sure assessments are accurate and fair, and keeping local government accountable to protect services that families rely on. And they listed, let's see, public schools, public safety, housing, and solutions on homelessness. And so the only really debunking is solutions on homelessness. The property taxes don't affect our solutions on homelessness. And there is no allocation specifically for solutions on homelessness with our property tax. And if that were to happen, again, that would need to go on the ballot for voter approval. So that was the only small thing that I found. Um, let's see. And yeah, so now, okay. And again, if you want to understand more about the Office of the Assessor in general, please head over to the Only in Santa Clara County podcast and check out episode 13. Okay. And now we're going to get to the juicy part of the interview where we talk about the upcoming election for the county assessor. We also debunk some platform myths that have been spread around on what the county assessor can actually do. And David also shares his thoughts on Measure A and Prop 50. And again, views are his own and do not reflect the county or this podcast. Thank you so much. Do enjoy. All right. So wrapping up now,
Yep.
I wanted to touch base on the upcoming election. And so, Assessor Stone has been in this role for many decades. And so this is a big deal that it's changing over,
Yep.
change of hands. And so what would you say are the skills of a good assessor?
Yeah. I think the skills of a good assessor is having the ability to make difficult judgments. And I would say, given that these people inherently are politicians to some degree, they have to have the skill that most politicians don't relish, which is the ability to say no. And that may mean saying no to your friends.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard. That is a very hard thing. And I think you want someone who has judgment. You ideally someone with a legal background is very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally someone with a commercial real estate background, and ideally someone who's been in the office and understands the complexity of the office. I think most people have a very basic understanding of property taxes, and they just don't understand the complexity and what goes into making the assessment, which is something every year. The assessment role, it's like a little factory.
Mm-hmm.
A property goes from one place to another place in the organization, and you have to have a real understanding of how that comes together. And you have to be willing to make difficult decisions
Mm-hmm.
in partnership with the assessor staff. And you also have to make really difficult decisions around hiring.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably, one of the most important parts of the job is having the discernment about hiring good people who have a deep ethical core to them, who are going to be independent and are able to make judgments without concern really for the impact on whoever they're making whether it's the city who
Mm-hmm.
depends upon the taxes or the property owner. They're trying to arrive at what is truly a fair value. What would everybody in the community agree is the right value?
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the team, like the number of bodies in the county assessor? It doesn't have to be exact
Yeah.
numbers, but
Yeah, it's around 250 employees. And what's
Mhm.
interesting is that uh, during Larry's entire tenure, which maybe, let's just say it's been a long 30 years. I don't know what your age is, but a long time. Uh,
I was born.
you know, You were born. Okay, good. Okay, we established that. Okay, so there wasn't. So you were there when Al Carlson, when you were born, Al Carlson was his assessor. Uh, so say the question again.
What? How many bodies are in?
Oh
And you
yeah,
were
yeah, yeah,
saying, yeah.
yeah. So there's about a dozen executive managers.
Okay.
I think is the number, somewhere's around there, 11 to 12 executive managers, including the assistant assessor, which is the person who's responsible for the day-to-day operations, and they're really intimately involved in that role. The current assistant assessor is Nisa Filgar,
Hmm.
and the current assessor is Greg Monteverdi.
Okay. And I had three questions left. So one was, I've been hearing as I'm watching the candidates, there was a candidate that had talked about homelessness and connecting the assessor's office with homelessness. Can you talk about that?
There is not much connection between the issue of homelessness and the assessor. I think that the assessor's role is to make sure that all the values are assessed properly.
Hmm.
And in doing so, then the cities get revenue, which ultimately can be used for helping with the homeless crisis.
Hmm.
Uh, but they can't do anything about the fact that you have an apartment building that's been owned by the same owner for 30 years,
Hmm.
and thus the assessed value is a small fraction of what it is worth.
Mm.
And that means that it's getting only a small fraction of the potential taxes.
Hmm.
So the assessor does have the bully pulpit, but not much of one. It's not like, when you think of elected officials in our region, you typically think of your member of Congress, your mayor, maybe a county supervisor,
Hmm.
but mostly it's your mayor and your congressperson, maybe a state senator, but you generally don't think of the assessor. So it's not much of a bully pulpit.
Hmm. Because they don't have
So
policy
they
decisions.
don't have
Yeah.
their policy decisions that they make are really around how the law is administered,
Hmm.
and around workload issues, and it's an administrative job.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, it's an administrator. We're electing, which is different in most cases. Most politicians are policymakers. You're asking them to make judgments around what are the types of policies that we want, that will govern our lives. That's not generally the case with the assessor, and I think people who talk about that they're going to solve homelessness by becoming an assessor
Hmm.
really don't have a true understanding.
Hmm.
Perhaps, I mean, I don't really know. Maybe they have some great thing I haven't heard of, but
Hmm.
I'm not aware, and no other assessor I know of as doing that. And I should note, there's another candidate who says he's going to make it so that seniors don't have to pay property taxes.
Hmm.
Um, and there's no way.
Hmm.
He didn't have that ability to just wave a wand and say seniors will no longer pay property taxes. It
Hmm.
just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I think that maybe that same candidate also talked about like I'm going to modernize the assessor's office, and you had just spoken about
Yeah,
the decades long work that Larry has already done and
yeah.
is continued because it is a continuous job.
It's a
Um,
continuous process. No, it's continuous process that builds one piece, builds upon the next piece, builds upon the next piece, and so on and so forth. And Larry has, he's done that, and so been there, done that.
okay. And then yeah, so any final words, maybe something we didn't touch on, and also any final words on the upcoming election for the county assessor.
I mean, I think my main message on this is make sure you vote.
Hmm.
If you haven't, if you don't vote, don't complain. You have a right that most of the world doesn't have.
Hmm.
Take it seriously, even to elect the assessor. I mean, the assessor's office is not the most glamorous place in the world, but I encourage you to vote. And on a personal, I urge people to get in and support Prop 50,
Hmm.
and as well as Measure A.
Hmm.
Measure A, for those who have not heard about it, is critical for protecting our health safety net.
Hmm.
If you've ever used an emergency room, you'll know why it's so important that we keep our hospitals safe and open.
Mhm.
And Measure A has, the mayor is supporting it, our board of supervisors, members of Congress. It's really important, and it's a way that we can. It's Measure A is a local way that you can take action against what's going on at the federal level.
Mhm.
If you don't like what you're seeing done by our president and you feel helpless, then get involved with Measure A. It's a way that you can actually do something right here, right now, locally, and make a difference. And I don't know. It's supporting Measure A is a way to give Donald Trump the middle finger. That's my
Thank you. Thank you for
uh,
that.
yeah.
Prop 50, do you wanna say anything about Prop 50?
Prop 50. I'm holding my nose and I'm going to vote for it.
Mhm.
I'm not a fan,
Mhm.
but I'm even less a fan of the screwy efforts to try to redistricting throughout the country that's designed. The voters are supposed to pick their elected officials, not the other way around.
Mhm.
And this idea that the elected officials are going to draw maps that are going to be most convenient for getting them elected is corrupt, is absolutely corrupt and is wrong.
Mhm.
And generally, I agree with Governor Schwarzenegger.
Mhm.
I mean, the commission is the right way to do it independently,
Mhm.
but sometimes you have to have an exception. And I never thought that would happen. I
Mhm.
mean, nobody ever imagined that this would happen, that you would have other states trying to change the laws so that they can make sure they can retain the House of Representatives when they may not be able to because their policies are so. I mean, this tells you something. Trump is so worried that his policies are so unpopular, he has to change the redistricting. That
Mhm.
tells you a lot. That tells you everything you need to know.
Mhm. Yeah. And also listeners should know that this isn't a permanent change.
Nope.
It's supposed to
Thank you.
revert back
Yep.
to the Citizen Commission. Yeah, this is
Absolutely. It will revert back. It
yeah.
doesn't. There's no way. It's not a. It will revert back, and I think that was a key component that made the difference for me was that
Mhm.
it would revert back. And I think that's important, and unlike Texas, we're voting on it.
Yeah.
You get the
Yes,
opportunity
exactly.
to weigh in and say, do you agree with what Trump's approach or not?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, when I read the text, that was the key factor for me too. And I was like, "Oh, this
Yeah,
really is an emergency response and it's not changing the whole thing."
right.
Yeah.
So emergencies happen. I mean,
Mhm.
and we're in an emergency right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much,
All
David.
right.
Thank you for
Thank you.
sticking on late. This was
Yeah, you
such
bet.
a great conversation.
Oh, you bet. And
All right, folks, and that is a wrap for this episode. Remember, the special election is on November 4th, so make sure you are registered and ready to go, and make sure that you are going to go vote on the county assessor as well as Measure A and Prop 50. If you want to know more about Measure A, check out the following episode. We have a little preamble on HR 1, which is why Measure A exists in the first place, and then you can check out the Measure A episode. And without further ado, if you enjoyed the episode, please give us a like, a follow, subscribe, share it with your friends. And if it's within your means, consider making a donation. Thank you so much. Until next time.